When the same pattern keeps repeating itself with new faces, new lives, new intentions, the pattern is not coming from the individuals, it's coming from the atmosphere that sits over the place. And when an atmosphere is strong enough to override individual behavior, you are no longer dealing with human fault lines. You are dealing with spiritual conditions. Environments hold residue, they hold history, they hold unresolved battles, unaddressed wrongs, unhealed fractures and unbroken cycles. People step into an atmosphere thinking they're starting fresh, not realizing they walked into a place already claiming them, already scripting them, already placing them into a story they did not write. And this is why the chaos remained consistent, not because the people are chaotic, but because the place was never cleansed, confronted, or corrected spiritually. Some environments are engineered to destabilize. Some environments are saturated with what was never dealt with. Some environments carry a spiritual charge that distorts peace. It distorts your thinking, relationships, and even self perception. And that is the root cause. It is spiritual. Because whenever a location can outlast generations of people and still produce the same destruction, there is something deeper that is governing that place. But until the deeper cause is addressed, healed, or dismantled, the same chaos will continue no matter who steps inside. And this pattern doesn't stop with a single house or neighborhood. It shows up everywhere humans gather. Jobs, people rotate in and out of certain workplaces, yet the same betrayal, hostility, gossip, burnout, and turnover repeat like clockwork. You can put kind people into a toxic workplace, and within months, they're exhausted, they're defensive, they're withdrawn or misjudged. And that's when you realize it's not the workers, it's the environment that shapes the behavior. If the environment is spiritually contaminated through manipulation, through leadership, hidden agendas, greed, jealousy, oppression, it doesn't matter who works there. The atmosphere will swallow them whole. Some neighborhoods stay in conflict regardless of who moves in. Decades can pass, residents can change, but the same despair, crime, distrust, and broken community continues. Why? Because the environment has been marked by unaddressed wounds, unresolved harm, forgotten injustices, and long term neglect. An environment with that history carries an energetic residue. It molds whoever enters, it confuses them, and it destabilizes them. A good hearted person can move into a neighborhood with a heavy spiritual atmosphere and feel their peace thinning without understanding why. The place is influencing the person, not the other way around. Some cities have a reputation before you even land there. And you feel something in the air, a heaviness and an intensity, a distortion in how people treat one another. Cities carry spiritual histories. Don't hesitate to check on the history of where you move, even where you live now. Spiritual history. What was fought? What was denied? What was abused? What was built on suffering or manipulation? All of it remains in the atmosphere. People move there to start new lives and end up repeating the same cycles of depletion, struggle, distraction, or confusion because the city's spiritual imprint is stronger than their intentions. So it matters where we move. And if we can't choose what city we live in, we can choose what space we reside in. What do I mean by that? We can choose our peace in our home. And in politics, now this is where the pattern becomes unmistakable. Politicians can come and go. Parties can rotate. New faces make old promises, yet the same corruption repeats. The same dysfunction continues. The same harm resurfaces every cycle. That means it's not the individuals, it's the atmosphere sitting over the political system. No, I'm not going to say that. A spiritual residue formed by generations of deceit, power hunger, oppression, and manipulation. People step into those roles thinking they will change the system. When new people get elected and they have all of these grandiose ideas that how they're going to change the world and make it better, and they're not going to be corrupt, they're not going to accept bribes, they're going to look after the homeless, they're going to do, and they don't do. Why? because the system changes them. They have that in their heart to do, right? And people step into these roles thinking they're going to change the system, not realizing they stepped into an environment designed to change them. You could just sit back and the same one's going to do the same thing over and over. It's not them, it's bigger than them. This is why people with good intentions lose themselves, because they don't know how to step out of it, because they become the system, they become the title. And that's why integrity collapses. This is why moral clarity becomes foggy, not because they were bad, but because the environment was stronger than their personal will. Whenever the same dysfunction repeats with new people, employees, the root cause is deeper than personality or behavior. Some homes don't need to be passed down. Some objects don't need to be passed down unless you cleanse it, because it becomes spiritual, because environments have memory, atmospheres have influence. And when something spiritual governs a space, it will shape the actions, emotions, and outcomes of whoever enters it. You cannot fix spiritual problems with human solutions. You cannot heal a place by replacing the people. And you cannot change a system by switching faces. That is why spiritually gifted individuals are placed in the world. They're not meant to retreat from the world, right? Because you have to confront the deeper cause, or the cycle will continue untouched and undisturbed. If the same dysfunction keeps repeating, the truth becomes undeniable. It's not the people, it's the environment. When chaos follows a location, not the residents, you're looking at an environmental influence with a spiritual root. Families move, workers change, mayors lose elections, politicians rotate every few years, yet the dysfunction stays. And that reveals something most people overlook. Environments hold memory. They hold the residue of past harm, the weight of old intentions, and the unhealed wounds of generations, and the consequences of what was tolerated. Once a place is spiritually contaminated, you can place new people inside of it and the old outcome will still emerge. Ever walk into a job where everyone is stressed, mistrusting, drained, or on edge? You'll notice something. People keep quitting, but the culture stays the same. Because in some workplaces, gossip is normal, sabotage is standard, backdoor deals control everything, power is misused, truth is punished, loyalty is exploited, and good employees burn out quickly. It doesn't matter who works there, the environment converts people. You can place the kindest person in a spiritually contaminated workplace, and within months, they will feel exhausted, defensive, confused, emotionally disconnected, and questioning their worth. That's not weakness, that's environmental influence. When an atmosphere is spiritually rotten, it feeds on morale, integrity, and peace until everyone inside starts to malfunction. Some neighborhoods have a cycle that's been repeating for decades. Different family, different dreams, different hopes, same outcomes. Every generation faces division, conflict, fear, distrust, broken communities, and a sense of being spiritually strangled. Why? Because the neighborhood wasn't born chaotic, it was conditioned by years of neglect, industrial decisions, political manipulation, exploitation, or trauma. And when the foundation of a neighborhood is spiritually compromised, the land itself carries the weight. What about Wall Street? Wall Street was built over African graves, freed and enslaved. Could you imagine their relatives? A good-hearted person may move into a troubled neighborhood, and they can feel their peace draining, confusion, irritation increasing, a heaviness they can't explain, a pressure that shifts personality. And that's not imagination, that's spiritual inheritance from the land. Every city is known for something and is rarely random. Some cities are known for creativity, some for pride, some for corruption, some for betrayal, some for violence, some for opportunity, and some for despair. These reputations didn't start with social media. They were formed by the spiritual residue of what the city has fed into, what it protected, glorified, or ignored over decades. When a city mistreats its people, the homeless, elevates greed, the drug dealers, thrives on injustice, mass incarceration, protects corruption, white collar crime, bribes, or was built on unhealed harm, right? That spiritual weight lingers. People move there for a fresh start, but end up repeating old cycles because the city presses its imprint onto whoever enters. A city's atmosphere can distort thinking, relationships, and confidence, decision making, and even your destiny. That's the power of spiritual residue. And this is why the chosen, the spiritually gifted, have to constantly stay connected, stay with their spiritual rituals, stay cleansed. Be careful who you allow riding in your vehicle, who you ride with, who you sit next to, right? Who you allow in your home, who you allow to sleep in your bed, because you contaminate it and you're not allowed to be contaminated. Politics, because when you are contaminated, it does so much damage and it takes you a while to get rid of it. Someone that doesn't have your calling won't feel what you feel. They will thrive in immorality and in corruption. And you do it and you're feeling guilt. It doesn't work out. You're tripping over yourself, right? Because politics is the clearest example of truth. Leaders rotate, parties rotate, promises rotate, but the dysfunction stays the same. Because the system itself carries a spiritual imprint that is created by generations of dishonesty, greed, misuse of power, manipulation, deals made in darkness, and decisions made without conscience. People step in with noble intentions and lose themselves, not because they are bad, but because they stepped into an environment stronger than their personal will. And this is why corruption repeats, scandals repeat, public betrayal repeats, and broken promises repeat. It is the environment, not the names, that holds the power. Until the spiritual root is confronted, politics will continue to swallow good people and multiply dysfunctional outcomes. When the same dysfunction keeps resurfacing, no matter who steps in, that means you are not dealing with personality. You're dealing with a spiritual condition attached to the environment. People are not the source. They are the carriers of what the environment feeds them. The atmosphere influences behavior, decisions, communications, emotional stability, clarity of thought, levels of peace, and levels of conflict. And you wonder why the bullies stay. They operate just fine. The groups, the little cliques, they do just fine. It's those that are more independent suffer. Now, this is why moving, hiring new staff, elevating new leaders, or changing faces rarely solve anything. You cannot repair spiritual problems with surface solutions. You must confront what governs the space. If you are spiritually awakened, sensitive, gifted, or called to truth, you notice these environmental patterns faster than most. You feel the atmosphere, you sense the distortion, you detect the emotional climate, you notice the unspoken tension, and you see the pattern repeating before the people see it. Your clarity isn't exaggeration, it's quite accurate. Because those with spiritual sensitivity are wired to pick up the roots behind the behavior. And once you understand the root, you no longer blame the people. You recognize the influence they're sitting under. You are wrestling with spirits and principalities. So when you see patterns repeating across jobs, neighborhoods, cities, politics, or even politics, just remember it's not random. It's not coincidence. It's not people being people. It's environmental influence with spiritual depth.